Hello, everybody from the clouds. Um, so excited. What a great way to spend a Sunday afternoon with all of you and with these amazing actors. Um, I'm going to just read their bios, and it's going to take a while because there's a lot to talk about. And then they're going to come on, and we're going to keep it very freestyle. So, Jurnee Smollett has been acting nearly her entire life. She received her SAG card at 3 years old. She began her career as a child actress on sitcoms Full House, Martin, Hanging with Mr. Cooper, and On Our Own, which featured her and her five actor siblings. She received critical acclaim for her performance as 10-year-old Eve in the 1997 film Eve's Bayou, opposite Lynn Whitfield, Samuel L. Jackson, and Debbie Morgan. She received the Critics' Choice Award and was nominated for an NAACP Image Award. Her director said of her then, "There's nothing indulgent about Jurnee's acting, ever. There's never a moment when you don't believe her." At 20, she appeared as the sole female debater in the historical film The Great Debaters, directed by Denzel Washington. For her performance, she received another NAACP Image Award. She's been a regular cast member on Friday Night Lights and True Blood, and was a lead in the WGN series Underground. And just this year, she starred as Letitia Letty Lewis in the mega hit Lovecraft Country for HBO, opposite another friend of the studio, Jonathan Majors. And she's just been nominated for another Critics' Choice Award. Jurnee is an activist for a variety of causes. She's been active in the HIV/AIDS prevention since she was 11 years old, including for the Black AIDS Institute, the Red Cross, and Artists for a New South Africa. Quote, "Jurnee's truly a fighter for the people," end quote, says her friend Patrice Cullors, co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement. She's unapologetic, loving, and full of righteous fire. Jurnee appeared on the cover of The Hollywood Reporter in August, and in the profile said, quote, "We're no longer asking for a seat at the table. We're building our own motherfucking table." Jurnee and Chris Messina worked together in Birds of Prey and The Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. And we're so happy to have her here today. Chris Messina is an actor, film director, and producer. He's appeared in over 70 roles. Someone's got their mic on, and I'm getting a little backfire here. Let me start again. Chris Messina is an actor, film director, and producer. He's appeared in over 70 roles over his 20-year career in films such as Vicky Cristina Barcelona, Argo, Julie and Julia, Celeste and Jesse Forever, and You've Got Mail. On television, he's appeared in 6 Feet Under, Damages, The Newsroom, and The Mindy Project, the latter of which earned him 2 nominations for the Critics' Choice Television Award for Best Actor in a Comedy Series. In 2018, he appeared in the HBO miniseries Sharp Objects with Patricia Clarkson. He began his career off-Broadway, which is when I met him many years ago, and has had many incredible stage roles. Chris says that growing up, he only ever wanted to be 2 things, an actor or a dancer. He competed for Mr. Dance of the United States. "I love watching dancers," he says. "You can tell so much about a person by the way they move. It's such a vulnerable mode of expression." Chris says he frequently picks projects because of the other talent, and he told Forbes in 2017 that he simply loves working with women. In October, The Cut said, as opposed to the other many Chris's of Hollywood, "This is a Chris with range, one that this magazine has formally proposed to replace Chris Pratt for good. He is, of course, Chris motherfucking Messina." I am so pleased to have both of these wonderful actors here today. Please give them a welcome. Turn your mics on so we can hear the applause if you'd like.
Yay.
Welcome, guys. Now, I have to say, first of all, that Jurnee is coming to us. Chris is in LA, and Jurnee is in Australia, where it is a very early time. How early is it out there, Jurnee?
It is 7:16 a.m.
Well,
Oh,
God
yeah.
bless you. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here. And we've got a lot of current students and former students, and they were writing a bunch of stuff in the chat. And I know that it's always so inspiring, and it was for me growing up to be able to see someone who you admire who's making this work, because it's hard to be an actor. It's hard to be an actor. It's hard to do the work, and it's hard to have faith in the career when it is happening and when it isn't happening. So I know that it's just exciting for everybody, and it's exciting for me to have you.
Thanks for
Um,
having us, sir.
yeah, it's my pleasure. I love you both so much. And I wonder if you could just talk about how you met and what that chemistry was like in that film that you did together. And because that's when you first told me about Jurnee, Chris.
Yeah, we were playing arch enemies in Birds of Prey, but as many people on here could uh, understand, one of the great things about what we do is we get to meet all these fantastic, talented, smart, inspiring people, and Journeys, you know, she's one of them. And then you kind of stick with some folks, you lose folks along the way. But I'm lucky that Journey and I have maintained and become real friends, and she stuck with me. But the minute I saw her and started to work with her, I was, as I'm sure everybody on this Zoom can understand, I was blown away by what was in front of me. She sings in Birds of Prey, and she recorded a track, and I was in a rehearsal watching her go through the what will happen. It was a big sequence, and I was just in awe of the ease, and I couldn't take my eyes off her, and it seemed like I was in front of somebody that could do so many things. So I'm just really fortunate to have become her friend.
Um, I feel I'm the fortunate one. It's funny you mentioned that. That was the first day we had like a rehearsal um of that scene. That was like the first like real rehearsal sequence we had for the movie. Um and you know, Chris afterwards he came up to me, and I don't know if you remember, but you just said to me, you said, "Oh, you're going to be so fucking amazing in this movie." And it was like, that those early jitters that you have when you're on a project and you're like, shit, man, what the, where are we? And we're doing it, we're in it, at this moment we got to play, we got to just like dive in, right? And it was just like so generous of him. Sorry, that's my door creaking. So incredibly generous of him to gift that to me. He didn't know whether I needed to hear that or not, but it was a character that I just so wanted to crush. Like there was like it's just such a weird world. It's not weird, but it's a very unique world when you step into the comic book world, right? As Chris knows. And you just don't want to be the person that screws it up. And so it was just incredibly generous of him to come up and tell me that, and from that moment on, like, there were so many moments I'd call Chris and be like, man, this moment I'm struggling with. What you think? Like, what are we doing? Like, can we improv? And then he and I, like on set, we'd have like our own little like secret,
Yeah.
and then, okay, this moment's opening up, and he'd do some crazy wacky thing and he's flapping like a bird. And I'm just like, I love him. I love him, man, and it was just like there was so much improv between us, and just such a freedom that we had. And even though we were playing enemies, there was an incredible amount of generosity and sharing between the two of us, and just this real desire to play, you know. that I so appreciated about him. And even now, I mean, we're joined at the hips. You know, I call Chris and I'm like, man, I got this audition, man. What the fuck do I do, man?
Well, I was right. You crushed it in the movie. I was right.
So did you. You were just so surprising and intimidating and scary in a way that was very unexpected. You know, I just loved your choices. They were very bold. Very, very bold.
But this is a, you know, like I'm repeating myself here, but for everybody listening, I think the gift is what we do is we get to join these families, you know, and sometimes like families, you butt heads and there's disagreements and you fall in love too, you know, and that's what happened for me with Jurnee, and we have that now. We get to, you know, spend our life sharing stories and going, hey, what should I do with this part? Or did you see this? Or what do you think of that? And we build now a community, another family. So it's a real gift.
But you know, I think people will, for that to happen on the first day, for someone to come up to you on the first day. I've been on some film sets and there's some very cool people there who don't come up to people, right? There's a kind of a weird, you know, sensing who's the alpha and what's the pecking order. And maybe after you've had a scene, you might, you know, be at the craft services and maybe start to talk. But on the first day, to be that open, that generous, that sweet, that is unusual, don't you think, Jurnee?
Oh, it's incredibly unusual, Terry. And let me say something. It's funny. I was just talking to a friend of mine, and I was like, you know, I as a woman, you know, who's both female and Black, navigating this world has been navigating this industry, right? Or navigating this space has been, you know, a little clunky, right? And oftentimes when I show up on a set, it's not my it's my gender, honestly, that I'm confronted with, right? And it might be the director, or it might be another co-star or something. But I was saying to a friend of mine, like, it just, why does it always surprise me when it's like the dude, man, like the dude's competitive with me, or like, why does that surprise me? It still surprises me. Like, oftentimes, a lot of my historically, a lot of my male co-stars, not everyone, but I've bumped up. I've had those experiences where it's just like, damn, why do you gotta be just so competitive? We're in this together. We're on the same team. And Chris, I mean, that's why it was like just so mind blowing to me, because it couldn't have been more the opposite. It just like, he could have been like, yo, this is my enemy, and I'm gonna play this the whole time. We riding this wave, and it just was like, wow, what a gift he gave me, you know, what a gift, because I respect Chris. And that's the thing. You're oftentimes working with other actors that you respect and admire, right? Like, I love Chris's work, right? And even in the table read, I was like, oh, wow, he's doing something, you know? And so for him to just give me that gift, it's something I'll never forget. And I want to believe that emboldened me in a way, you know, and it gave me just an extra level of confidence that I'm grateful for, Chris, you know. And I think in the shoot, it was a difficult shoot for me, for all of us. You know, these big budgeted movies are challenging, but to have a comrade like Chris and Margot and Rosie and Mary, you know, we became a family. You know, there were so many moments in which I'd call Margot and be like, yo, so well, you know, and it's rare to have that. You don't always have it, and sometimes you feel very alone and isolated. So yeah, I Chris, you're the best, man. You really are. You're special. I appreciate you.
Right back at you.
Well, that's so nice. No, but it really is unusual. And well, how have you guys been doing with the virus, and in terms of your work and getting back to work and staying sharp? How has that been going for you? It seems like things are starting to go back to work, but we're also about to have a second wave and are having a second wave. So how are you feeling about that? And do you find yourselves feeling a little rusty? Was it nice to have time off? Are you glad to be, because both of these guys are, Journee's right now just started shooting something, and Chris is about to start shooting something in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm here in Australia working with some amazingly gifted, talented folks. Chris Hemsworth, Miles Teller, two actors that I love their work, and we're having a blast down here. I mean, we did the 14-day quarantine, and now it's like we're out in the world. It's a bit of a mind trip coming from America and having been so isolated this whole year. The prep for the film was done through Zoom. A lot of it, we had table reads this way, and so it's been nice to like get here and like get in a space with Miles and Chris and Joe, our director, and actually be able to interact with each other and rehearse. And but yeah, the year has been quite interesting, man. It's been for me, it's been a lot about endurance, and adapting, and shifting and like letting go of certain plans. I'm a planner. I make plans, but you make what is the saying? You make plans and God laughs at you. And so it's been a lot about, okay, well, this wasn't a part of the plan, but I'm letting go and diving in. With Lovecraft, we did a whole promo tour. I did it from my house, without a nanny. And so it's been a lot about just using your imagination and finding solutions to things, but still staying creative. Your masterclass was such a gift, being a part of that this summer, and watching Chris work and all the other amazing, gifted, talented actors was such a gift for me. And even though it was through Zoom, it was very, very impactful on me. Just kind of stand in it, and I found this year I needed to be very creative in ways that I didn't know I needed to be creative. Like I learned how to play the guitar, or started reading the sonnet a day, or like, just finding ways to fill up my instrument, fill up my well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been interesting. Chris, how you feel?
Excuse me, very similar. Yeah, when everything first started, and the initial fear and sadness kind of, it started to become the norm. I moved into an interesting place where I was deciding that I didn't want to do this anymore. And which was confusing and freeing. And it took actually.
Chris, let me just
Terry,
interrupt you. When you say didn't want to do this anymore, were you thinking, okay, because I know you love directing also, I'll stop acting and I'll move more into directing, or just the whole business?
I think the whole, it was the whole, there was a relief for me, in my, where I was at in life, to not be reading about in Deadline Hollywood about all these projects that I wish I could do. It was a relief to not have to prepare an audition. There was a relief in the norm of being an actor. So it was really like, I don't know. Time is so precious and life is so precious. I want to use it properly, my time. As we all know on this Zoom, it's such a beautiful craft, but it requires a lot of discipline and sacrifice. And so we have all missed weddings and funerals and birthdays. We have all, Jurnee's on the road and she's juggling her family, and it's constant. and all around us, the people, sometimes suffer and sometimes, grow through where we take them, where we go. So for a moment I said, what am I doing? Why am I running around? So I guess what I'm saying, in between all the sadness and watching the news and reading the paper and being horrified and worried, I was also finding a stillness and a quiet that was much needed. It wasn't until your class, which I pushed myself to take your class, and you know how much I love you and how much I respect you. There was something calling me to take it and to be with you and to be with that class, which was, I mean, it was a gigantic gift for me, because excuse me,
Mhm.
it reminded me of the love of the craft. So it was the plays, it was like going back to how it started, the plays and those great writers, and the work in that class, and the dedication, and your beautiful notes. And I kept making up excuses for the Zoom. I can't do it. It's Zoom. I'm finding it annoying to connect. I want to touch. I want to smell. And I remember at some point you said, you make an audition tape at home with the camera. You kind of politely said to me, yeah, I've seen some great stuff on Zoom. I think you can do it. And it was, that might have been the third week. It might have been the fourth week, but it pushed me to go further. And it pushed me to stop making up excuses. And then it all clicked that the running from was the business and the ugliness and the annoying frustration, but it wasn't the work. It wasn't the great gift of, acting with someone like Jurnee and doing something like Tennessee Williams with Celestine, who was remarkable and so gifted and such a hard worker and so committed. So that really brought me home.
That's great. Yeah, that makes me think. I mean, it's always been a crazy business, but it feels crazier and more commercial now than it was back in Brando's day, or Paul Newman, or the 70s, which is our friend Sam Rockwell's favorite time of movie making.
Yeah.
Speaking of Sam, I was working with him. We've been working on this movie he's going to do in London, and he's how I met you. He brought me to a play of yours, with, I think, Marin Ireland, maybe.
Yeah.
And I just
Carol Churchill play.
Holy God, this guy is dangerous. You were just so like a live wire. And Sam, we were talking about you because I know you guys talk all the time and help each other all the time, in the way that Jurnee was saying she calls on you. And he said he doesn't know anyone who's more a student of the craft and the history of the craft and loves the craft more than you. And that, you gave him this book recently about Goodfellas, and like, you just have such an obsessive appetite for the craft. And lo and behold, yesterday or the day before, you sent me a text with Andre Gregory's new memoir called This Is Not My Memoir, with a quote from the Swedish actor Erland Josephson, just like, oh, I have a minute, let me send this to Terry. And it was like so inspiring, and that's you, buddy.
Thank you, Terry.
I gotta say, it scared me to have both of you in my class. It did. What happens if I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about?
Well, it was a great, both classes were phenomenal.
Chris, what would you love to know about Jurnee? Why don't you ask her?
God,
Oh, wow, that's a good question.
yeah, that's a great question.
Or hear Jurnee talk about?
Well, I never really talked to Jurnee about the beginning of her love for this and what kind of set her off. And I didn't realize it was, I knew she was a child actor, but like when you were reading her bio, I didn't realize it was that young. Do you not want to talk about that?
I mean, yeah, sure. It's, part of my history. What do you want to know about it?
Well, I just wanted to know maybe like where you got lit up, and then maybe it wasn't that young. Maybe it was like the next stage, and like where it like really gave you the fire to be like, this is like, I'm doing this. I have this gift, I'm doing this.
It's interesting because I remember when I fell in love with it. Like it's a clear, oh, this is what I know. This is the calling on my life. I don't understand it, but I want to do this. I want more of this. I'm hungry for this. It was with Eve's Bayou, working with Samuel Jackson and Casey Lemons. They poured into me a deeper understanding and appreciation for the craft, right? And servicing the gift. And I didn't know it at the time, but there were real tools and tricks that they gave me that I still use now, but because I started so young, just being honest, I went through different ebbs and flows where I wanted to quit, where I didn't want to do it anymore, where just feeling at a very young age, unfortunately. Like I remember, being roughly around 20 years old, being like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, how many times can I be told there's a really interesting role that I want to play, but I can't even audition for it because casting is saying they're not open, the role hasn't opened up. They're not willing to go ethnic on this role. And how many times can I be offered to play the Black chick that dies on page 33 in a horror film? And so it became honestly a little jaded. And I don't use that word lightly, because it's sad that at such a young age, I did feel so jaded about the industry. But it wasn't the craft, again, like you say, it was all the other stuff that comes along with it, just to be able to get on stage or on the set, to be able to do what you love. You got to deal with all this other bullshit, right? And so I didn't have the real tools that I needed at the time to navigate that without becoming jaded. But it was a trip to South Africa, honestly. I was doing a lot of nonprofit work. I was on the board of Artists for New South Africa. I was going in high schools and like speaking about HIV/AIDS and being like a peer educator. I was doing everything else but acting. I was doing things that felt like it was feeding my soul, right? And on this trip to South Africa, Samuel Jackson took me along with his wife, Latanya Richardson, and all these different artists. They paid for me to go. I was broke. There was no way I was going. But they were like my village, right? Of artists and activists. And they saw that I was kind of leaning more towards the volunteer philanthropic world. And they were like, you got to come with us. And on this trip to South Africa, I mean, it just completely changed my life and changed my perspective of the calling on my life, right? Because we got there because of art. We were building wells, we were doing all this beautiful work for locals in these townships, Ingwavuma, Khayelitsha. We were doing such work that was impacting and changing lives, right? Like making it where a young girl who was running her household wouldn't have to walk 5 kilometers one way and back to carry water on her head. Put a well in her village, she could actually focus on her school. Like real tangible life-changing shift. But I realized, oh wait, it was art that got us here. The work that all these artists have done enabled them to do this work, right? And so if I've been given a gift, how dare I sit on that gift and not use the gift, right? And I came back, and I mean, no joke, literally like 3 days after I landed back in the States with a new perspective of life and all these things, I received the script for Great Debaters and spent a month in the Schomburg Library in New York researching the role, being like, I know if I'm going to audition for Denzel Washington, whenever that time comes, Heffa, you better have your stuff ready, you know, like you better, like the work better be there. But yeah, I have had real moments, you know, even recently, a year ago when I was shooting Lovecraft Country, I had this thing I would say all the time on the set of like, oh, the world is trash, man, the world is trash. And, you know, there was so much going on in my family's life and my personal life, you know, marriage falling apart, like everything was awful. Like anything that could have been bad in my life was, right? But the work was beautiful and the work was sacred and the work was special. But I was in this space. And interestingly enough, I have to say, it was our friend Jonathan Terry who reminded me in a very gentle way of the nobility of what we do, right? That it's actually, we are servicing humanity in doing what we do. And, you know, it's sad because I think as actors, sometimes, you know, we kind of like, we downgrade what we do so often, and society does it. You know, society has painted actors as like frivolous and vain, and oh, actors only care about fame and attention, and you know, it's like, oh, can't believe an actor because they're probably lying because, you know, they're good at acting, you know, like all these things we say about actors. And yet when you look throughout history, it is one of the things that humanity has used to survive. Like we've always needed to be acted out to, or to act. Kids do it, you know, like my son needs to use his imagination and play different roles and escape and play. He's imaginative and curious. And we always say, oh, well, it's not rocket science. It's essential. It's an essential art form. And we forget that sometimes. And because we get so caught up in the like auditioning and the deadline articles and all the stuff that you were talking about, Chris. So that's a long answer to your question. But because I didn't, you know, because I started so young, and I didn't go to college for it. Like being on set was my college. You know, I learned from great actors. I learned from fucking Robin Williams about improv at 8 years old. You know, like I learned by doing. You do by doing, like Denzel says, you know. But I don't think that I didn't always have the tools to deal with all the bullshit that comes along with the craft.
Wow. Yeah, I think those tools are a constant work in progress too. I mean, you know, you obviously, you know, you have them more than you did at that time, but we're still always putting the pieces together. I'm 46 years old and I'm, you know, still going, okay, the business is the business and it's going to knock you down.
Yeah.
But the love of the game is that's something completely different. You know, I always tell my friends, and I'm telling myself, oh, you know, when we're knocked down by an audition or a job or whatever it is, it's like they weren't in the dream. When the dream started, they weren't in the fucking dream.
Right.
This job, you know, and so the dream was something else. The you know, when it came.
Right. And there are those like us, Chris, where it's like, well, acting, it's not just a mechanism for growth or expression, it's a mechanism for survival.
Yeah.
We have to.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if there was another option, maybe we'd be choosing those other options, but there's no option.
And I think you're right on it, Jurnee, because I think that if you can do something else, if you don't have a need to do this, then you should do something else.
Yeah. If it's not essential, if it is not like
exactly
as essential to breathing, because
exactly.
like you said, it costs you so much, man. There's so much sacrifice. I mean, I'm not seeing my family for Christmas. You know, like I'm not, you know, it takes me away from my son for endless amount of times, and there's so much that it costs you. These characters, these roles. There's the work that no one sees, the isolation, the loneliness, right? The dogged pursuit of it, right? The ability to allow your full emotional self to be turned over to another character, right? Like to access those dark places, it costs you a lot. Like you got to be willing to make that sacrifice over and over. You know, so if it's not essential, I don't know, maybe go be a rocket scientist.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. You have to have a need to do this. You cannot be stopped to do this.
Right.
You cannot be stopped.
Which with that, when they would say that to me when I was at NYU as a student, that statement always scared me. Because they're like, oh, geez, is there something else I could do? And I actually quit acting a couple times, and then, like Al Pacino says in Godfather 3, they pulled me back. But it does have to be a calling, I think, because it calls the best work. I mean, look, there are people who are really great marketers who don't care about the craft, who get jobs because of Instagram followers. You know, I mean, you can get jobs now if you have 150,000 Instagram followers. You can get a job because there will be eyeballs on you, and get a job on a show and you know, buy some real estate. For some people, that's just what it's the vehicle for. But for people like you, who really, both of you, who and I think the students at my school, thank goodness, because of what I want to stand for and what they agree to stand for. This idea of being an artist and giving your whole body and soul the way LeBron James gives his whole body and soul every time he plays, is meaningful. And you end up having a body of work that first of all is relevant, and that touches people and inspires people, and that people remember, and that it's exciting to do for all that price that you're both paying. And it is costly emotionally. Gosh, you guys are great. Jurnee, what would you love to know about Chris?
I would love to know, when you get a script, Chris, right? Where do you start? When you're like diving into a character, where's your like, this is my blank slate, and this is the first step I'm going to take? Or is there a first step for you?
That's a great question. I like that question because it always changes for me depending on the material. The better the material, the more I feel like it's right there. And unfortunately, you know, my career hasn't always taken. I think that was my watch or something. The better the material, the more it's right there. And I think my career, unfortunately, hasn't always been that way. So there's been a lot of like either rewriting or clarifying with the writer or director. He says you know, there's so much contradiction, and I believe in not a good way here. How can we fix this? And you know, and just like backstory, making up stuff. That's why going back to class and going back to the plays, it's so nice to go to Uncle Vanya or Summer and Smoke, and it's all right there for you to, you know, you just have to be a great detective. I mean, I don't really ever want to do it. I don't want to do the job I'm about to do. I don't want to do it. I love to prepare it, and I want to get paid for it, but I don't want to actually go do it. I don't want to have to do it. I just like, I did so bad in school that I just love to learn about, you know, different folks and different time periods. And, but I guess, yeah, I guess the answer, the short version, I guess, is it's different every time. Um, but I love a coach, you know, I love working with Terry. You know, Terry said something very nice that I'm a, you know, Sam said I'm a student of it and know a lot about it. I think I'm a total acting dork, and I'm more of a fan. And so like I'm really into uh what Terry has to say. I'm a thief. I want to know. I went up to you that day, Jurnee, because I saw like I want to be like her. That's awesome. What she's doing, I want to be like her. And I can learn from her. She's going to make me better. So I'm a thief. And I go to Terry and I'm a thief. And I go to another acting teacher and I open the Stella Adler book and I open Meisner and Esper and I'm just stealing because I'm a dork. and I just I'm kind of fascinated by the different philosophies of it all. So sometimes I try different things. Like I don't know, I don't know who said it, and Terry, forgive me if it was something that you told me or we talked about, but there are a lot of don't say the words out loud until you're ready to say them. You know, hold off from saying it. I've tried that. And then I've tried, like, a lot of times what works for me is really memorizing all of it, memorizing it back and forward. Like I could change my car tire and do the lines and so that I never have to think about the language anymore. So I guess, you know, I'm all over the place in saying I try so many different things. And then sometimes in the stillness, in the quiet, it just guides you, as you well know. It just guides you. This kind of music. This guy's an athlete. I got to get into better shape.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm doing this military movie with Jonathan Majors and in February, and you know, I'm a commanding officer of a naval fleet. I mean, I'm scared to fly in JetBlue, you know, in the back, you know. And so I go, how am I going to convince myself that I could possibly be a commanding officer if I can convince the two of you and anybody else on this Zoom? I have to convince me. So I think I start there. Maybe I got to convince me that I could be this killer in Birds of Prey, you know?
Right.
Yeah, this is great. So I think I want to open it up to questions. This is so good. So if you have a question, please funnel it towards Justin. And Justin, have you got any at this point?
Yep, got a couple already.
Okay. So I'll let you be the MC, and we'll let the people come on camera and ask both of you or either of you anything you want to ask.
Great. Let me see if he's here. He is here. Joseph Buchel had a great question. If you want to pop on, you may.
Everyone on this Zoom right now is a parent. Joseph had his kid while he was in second year with me. This is great.
Yeah, I did. And I got to be honest with you, Terry, I haven't seen you in a little bit. The training has prepared me for fatherhood like I wouldn't have known.
Thank God.
So first, I just wanted to say, based on the conversation to both Chris and Jurnee, that it was really meaningful to hear your struggles. I think, especially now with a lot of us, quarantine's hard. And I think, you know, wanting to do this, but things are on hold, and then the industry, all those things, and reminding us, like Terry did in the training, that it's the art and that you have to do it, that it feeds your soul. I think that was a beautiful reminder. But my question was for
and heals the world.
And heals the world. Yeah. That we need this now. And
we are rescue workers.
Yeah. My wife and I are watching Lovecraft right now, and I got so curious. So my question's for Jurnee. Your acting is so beautiful and rich and specific. But I got so curious, specifically in one episode when you exorcise ghosts from your house. And I said to my wife, a lot of the things that you deal with in Lovecraft aren't there. You know, they look like CGI creatures, and yet your emotions are so precise and beautiful. And then I wondered, how does your preparation change when the thing you're acting across from or reacting to is not even in front of you? I mean, Jonathan did a great job too. And I just wondered, does your preparation change when you haven't even maybe seen a mock-up of the monster that you're facing and reacting to?
Thank you for that question, and thanks for watching the show. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I don't feel that the preparation changes. For me, it's really about expanding your imagination, right? Which is required whether or not you're doing this really small, intimate scene in a diner or exercising ghosts, right? For me, with that scene in particular, it was quite personal, oddly enough. It's not just about Letty exercising the spirits in her house. It's also about her exercising herself. When she says, you're not dead yet, you can still fight. She's talking to herself as well. And I can relate to that on such a profound and powerful way. I have felt so displaced in moments in my life. I have felt like a stranger, a ghost in my own house. And with Letty, she dies, right? And then she's brought back to life, but in between that time does not really feel like she's living. Feels like she's existing and she's grasping at life, right? And she loses her virginity in a very like abandoned way. And she throws this house party and she does a bunch of, she's acting out because she's honestly searching to just feel alive, to feel something. And so the stakes are so high for her, right? You know, and the stakes got to be high in order for you to really abandon and go there. And so the stakes are so high because she's really fighting for her life, right? And I know what that feels like. And so, yeah, that was a wacky scene to shoot. And it's a practical nightmare. You know, we shot it over the course of 3 days. Jonathan, you know, and I are in it, but a lot of it is CGI, but then a lot of it's practical. You know, there's a wind machine going and you can barely hear each other. And, you know, the director is like thinking of he's got 5 million things to think about. And the CGI guys are coming and being like, can she stand actually over there? Because this shot doesn't work for us. And so it's like, and so honestly, it got to a point when we were shooting that, where I went up to the director and I said to him, I said, listen, it's a well that's gonna, it's not an endless well, you know, like Jonathan and I are gonna get to a point where we've got nothing left to give. And that's very rare that I do that. Like, you know, I'm the person you take after take, but we shot over the course of 3 days. And so the endurance that is required for that scene, right? It's no small feat. And so I went to the director because we're shooting all the wides and we're shooting everything but me and Jonathan. And there are moments that you just gotta advocate for yourself and for your instrument. You gotta know your instrument so well to know, listen, you're asking me to do this and you're asking me to do that, and I will do it, man. I will fucking dive off this bridge for you. But also, I need you to think about the performance, because all this CGI stuff is important, but it is nothing when it gets here and I got nothing left and I'm dry. It's nothing. This can all be great. Right? And so, yeah, I got to a moment where I just went to the director and I said that, and I was like, you shooting everything but me and Jonathan, and bless him, you know, and that's where it's like, it's great to have advocates on set like Amisha Green, and because those scenes are so demanding on everyone, on the cinematographer, and everyone wants to get it right. And sometimes they're just not thinking about the performance. Or if they are, they're not thinking about the person who has to deliver the performance, right? and so you got to be willing to say, this is what I need. You know, this is what my instrument needs. And you know, I'm so blessed because I had a partner like Jonathan, you know, who is giving it every take after take after take. Um, but yeah, it was very demanding. It was very demanding because really required that I access those really dark places. As an actor, sometimes you want to block off, you know, subconsciously. You're like, I don't want to go there. I'll give you everything else, but not that. But that was a very long answer to your question, as I tend to do. But yeah, it's a special scene, and interestingly enough, one that brought me and Jonathan closer, I think, as like scene partners, in like this real mutual respect that we had, but also knowing we had each other's back, you know, of like we're gonna advocate for each other and we're gonna protect the performance by any means necessary.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Joseph.
Thank you.
Great. Alexis B, do you want to turn on your camera?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for taking that time. And it's a very inspiring conversation to hear for us. My question was more for both of you with the situation right now with quarantine. What do you feel that has changed in your craft during that time, or that you have been able to apply for your characters to come, or something that you feel this quarantine has brought to you?
Can you give an example of what you mean by that, Alexis?
Meaning that
Like I notice it's made your hair pink.
It's actually magenta, but yes.
Yeah,
Pink.
I didn't see that before. So that's a quarantine thing. But what
Right.
what does the question mean?
The question means that, like, I wonder during that time that you might have for yourself, did you notice something, or were you able to work on something that you applied in your work or on your next role to come? That's my question, if it's clear or not.
Yeah, I think it's clear. I don't think, I don't know if I could name anything specifically for you, but I think using the quarantine for all of us, using it as training, a time to train, is super important. So maybe this is not exactly answering your question, but something I want to say is that we can use this strange time. If you're not working, or if you are working, you can use it to become stronger, whether that be voice or movement or just reading a play, so like I stated earlier, going back to the plays. Go back to the plays. Even if you've read them, go back to the plays. I really find that the plays are some of the best teaching. So I guess that's what I could say that I learned going back to the plays. You don't have work, but the plays are all around you. They're all around you. So you could be working on whatever, Hamlet or Chekhov or, whatever it is, Ibsen, something. They're gonna give you the gift. And if you can do that stuff, and you feel comfortable in that stuff, then any shitty pilot or shitty film that comes along it's just gonna be easy. So I don't know if that's quite answering your question, but that's what I'm going back to during quarantine. The plays, the writers are your best friends. The great writers are your best friends.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Chris. And for me, it's been a lot of kind of inspecting my weaknesses and strengths in my instrument, like really identifying them, confronting them, and trying to work on improving those weaknesses and the strengths, because sometimes when it's, once it's go time, it's kind of too late. instrument is either tuned up or not. You know, like if LeBron is not training in off season, once it's time for him to get back in the game, he's going to injure himself, right? And so once you get on set, everything's so chaotic and fast paced. And so if you're waiting to do the work, then you're gonna crash and burn, you know? And so I find the real discipline that's hard for us as actors because it's a very isolating and lonely work, you know, but the real discipline is in these moments of downtime to be tuning up your instrument. And that is only something you can answer, only you can know. Okay, is it physically, you know, are my strengths or my weaknesses in my physical body? Is it voice? Is it, okay, landscape and mapping out my characters? Okay, where is she coming from? Where is she, you know, what, only you know that, right? And only I know that about me, you know? And you'll learn more about yourself. In every character I've done, in every project I've taken on, I'm like, okay, tucking that in the back of my head. I gotta work on that in the off season because she, you know, it's causing me to have to overwork now, you know, because I lack in that. I find that I never feel like I've arrived to a place. Like I always feel like, got more growth, got more, you know, and that's exciting for me because I feel like if I were to have arrived in my craft, then I'm dead, you know? And so I've been really inspecting and reading a lot and, you know, picking up books that, oh, that's a great acting book I always wanted to read. I haven't read it, you know, Jurnee, shit, you need to read it, you know, like it's been a real time of transition and growth, but also of your body, you know, your spirit. I find like, I really in this moment had to quiet out the chaos, which is an essential tool for us as actors. So meditation's been very helpful for me. We've been in such a chaotic time between COVID and the social unrest, you know, the systemic racism that we've just been confronted with over and over, and the election, you know, all these things. It's just been a time of grief and loss, and you want to be able to quiet out the chaos, because when you get on set, it's so chaotic. DP's doing this, and the first AD's yelling, and you're just like, God, I need this, you know. And so, yeah, it's been a moment of inspecting and growth for me.
Thank you. Thanks, Alexis.
Thank you.
Jeremy Ayers, if you're still there, he has a question for Jurnee.
Hey, Jurnee. So my question is something I always wondered. Do you feel that you starting as a child actor kind of gives you maybe more an advantage as an actor because you don't grow up and have to strip away like the society things, you know, that you're taught of, like lessen your imagination and how I'm trying to phrase it, but you're not basically have to deal with the world where, you know, a lot of things what they teach us in class is the things you're taught during life, or the part of yourself that you have to close off, you know, as society teaches you and stuff. And as an actor, you have to have that imagination as a grown person, whereas an actor that's looked down upon. I mean, that's looked down upon as a grown person. I mean,
Right. I mean, I don't know. I think, you know, it's hard for me to know what my experience or how my experience would have differed if, or been different if I would have started later versus starting young. It's my experience, so it's all I know, you know. There are things that I feel like, you know, I kind of wish I would have gotten picked up that, or, you know, gotten that sort of thing, and I'm picking up later, or, you know. But then there's also real experience of like, I'm at home on set. Like, it is my home, you know. I feel very comfortable with the dynamics, and it's familiar to me. So there's that. But I think it's just a part of the evolution of you as an artist, right? You're always gonna pick up habits or need to dismantle certain things that aren't servicing you. Um, you know, um, I think we all struggle at some point with like the censor, those phantom voices in your head that I think that might be what you're referring to, of like, we have this childlike quality of having an imagination, and that really assists us in our craft. But society kind of like frowns upon that, and we suffocate it, right? But I think you're always going to have to be working on staying loose and staying imaginative and staying curious and observant, right? I think it's a constant work in progress, or it is for me. um I've picked up habits that I'm now inspecting and being like, oh, that's not servicing me in my life, and not in my craft. So it's hard for me to know. It's hard for me to know if I would have gone more of the route of like a real technical training and a real, like, I don't know. My experience is my experience. Your experience is going to be your experience, but hopefully we all find our way to our real inner core, and we find a way to unblock all that stuff. That's the work. Is like, how do you unblock those habits in order to truly get to this wild abandon, to get to this point where everything is just invisible and all that stuff vanishes and no one sees anything but the emotion. You feel it. So yeah, it's hard for me to know because it was my experience.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ellie Rettenberg has a question for both.
Hi. First, I just want to thank you guys both for being here and for being so vulnerable in your responses. It's really humbling as an actor, like up and coming and trying to carve a path in the business, to see people that have such like awesome, active, rich careers like you share things that are very human. I wanted to ask you about like what it's like for you to kind of return to like an educational setting or training in the midst of having an active career, but you kind of both touched on that quite a bit. But I think you both mentioned the masterclass that you were a part of, and I would just love to hear more about that, what your experience was like in that, like what you worked on and who you worked with, and just what it was like for you to be in that during all of this.
Yeah, I think in this, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think in this country it's like, oh, you're going back to school, like, and maybe even with acting, like, well, you did that, like you did school, you graduated from that school, or I don't quite get that, because it's like Jurnee has so eloquently put it. It's a constant work in progress. The mind, the body, the spirit, and so you're changing, and the work is changing, and the way you look at it is changing. So going back to class, as I said, was, as you saw and heard from me, was life changing for me at that moment in time. Terry's a fantastic teacher, so the way his ease and grace and kindness in which he took both Celestine and I, my scene partner, through Summer and Smoke, we actually picked, because I was in a weird place of not knowing if I wanted to do this anymore. I didn't know what I wanted to work on, so I kept being an annoying scene partner and changing up the scene. We'd read one play, and then the next week we'd read another play. And we came to Summer and Smoke through 5 or 6 other plays, and that was a big part of that. Was I didn't know what I wanted to say, but that was was a very rich experience because I love time. Like I could work on something. You could tell me in 15 years I'm going to do this part, and nothing would make me happier than having 15 years, because it's like pieces, right? You get the inner, like, this guy wants this and he's coming from this, and we're picking up at this. The movie starts at this particular point in his life and he's in the story because of this. And then I want to go to that place and I want to live in that place. And then I want to get the physicality, and then I want to get the sound. I want 15 years and I would still get the day one and be like, I think I need more time. So what we did for Summer and Smoke is I took 2 master classes. So Celestine and I rehearsed Summer and Smoke throughout the entire break of the second master class. And we did Summer and Smoke in the second masterclass. We just worked on a different scene. So we actually read the entire play, for a couple weeks before we went back to class.
That's very much what Win Handman would have people do in his class, the late Win Handman. He'd say, okay, for the next year, you're going to work on Stanley, and you're going to work your way through every scene in the play in my class. And it was such a gift. I was thinking just now, Ellie, your question reminds me that many years ago, first of all, Jennifer Beals came to study with Bill Esper after Flashdance, and said, "Oh, I need to train now." And William Hurt came and did a summer intensive with Bill Esper, 15 pictures into his career, and just said, "I just want to go back to zero. I'm putting a fence around these 2-3 months. I'm not going to take any work. I want to go back to the beginning because that's precious. And I'm always worried about, like, what am I going to do for this part? And I kind of want to just be a beginner and be a child again." And I was so impressed by both those very accomplished actors. And even Sam Rockwell came to study with Bill after being, doing some stuff, and then told his agent, "Okay, slow everything down. I'm going to spend 2 years with Bill," which is a very hard thing for a lot of people to do, to really invest in their training. But to come back to it, I mean, that was really so impressive to me, Chris, what you did.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what you just said was really important. I want to say it again, the beginner's mind.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, ultimately for all of us, what we need to keep doing. It's like there's always something more to learn, and there's always much room to grow. The last thing I'll say is that in doing Summer and Smoke throughout, and you're saying Win Hammond would do that. I've sat in so many acting classes. In 4 or 5 weeks, you're not going to get Hamlet. You would touch on it. You're not going to get Summer and Smoke in 4 or 5 weeks. So I would recommend to anybody watching you could do it on your own or do it with Terry. Even when the master class is done and you stop your Summer and Smoke, keep going with it. Keep working on it, because it's the only way you're going to really, really learn from it and get closer to the part.
It's interesting. I came to Terry this year, actually. So many people that I was working with and ran into, Jonathan, Chris, and then I was randomly on a flight and Sam sat next to me. It was like I'm on a flight working on the finale, like working on my script for Lovecraft Country for the finale. And I have to speak in the language of Adam. So I'm like trying to get it, right? And all I hear is this guy say, "What are you working on?" And I look up, it's fucking Sam Rockwell. He's sitting next to me, and the whole plane ride, I'm working on it, and we're talking, and he's working on the play he was about to do. And then so finally he says, "All right, let me hear some stuff." And so I do it for him. We're like on the plane drawing lines and stuff. Like, it was the best moment of my life, I swear, one of them. He's like, Jurnee, you're gonna fucking kill it. You're gonna kill it, you know. And so I was like, so Terry, tell me what's the process like? You know, I keep hearing about Terry, you know. And he's like, oh, you'd love working with Terry. You got to work with Terry. So finally, I was like, Chris, you know, between you and Jonathan and Sam, everyone keeps telling me I gotta meet with Terry. Yeah, you gotta. And so Chris introduced me. I was like, do you think he would take me on? Like, you know, would he write like a good recommendation for me?
It's what's called a warm introduction.
Yeah. He introduced us, and like in our first session, you know, I was like, oh, I'm hooked, because it was just such a. He started talking to me about my shadow. I was like, oh man, fuck you, but yeah. You know, and then interestingly enough, I had enrolled in the master class that Terry was going to do in LA in March, and COVID happened, you know, and so he had to cancel the in-person ones. And then, yeah, I just was hungry. You know, I think any idea of like, oh, going back feels a bit like the ego speaking to me. You know, it feels like the ego's front and center. And if you wouldn't go and study and continue to try to like learn and grow, that's because your ego's too big. And ego has no place in the craft, really. You know, it doesn't serve you, because it gets in the way. It's an illusion. We always can grow. We always can get uncomfortable, and that's when the real work happens. Is when we get uncomfortable. And so, yeah, I mean, I've for the past few years, I've worked with different coaches and different techniques. And like Chris says, you know, I like kind of, you know, putting something in my pocket. Oh, that works for me. Or, oh, that doesn't work. Or that process works. No, that doesn't work for me. Or for this character, this works. You know, when you work with great actors or filmmakers, you're like, oh, I like that they do that. Let me see if that works for me in my process. You know, I'm a bit of a thief too, Chris. You know, you're still like an artist. You just find what works for you, though.
That's great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right.
Bye.
Maybe we got one or two more, Justin?
Sure. Yeah, there's been so many great ones, and we can't possibly fit them. But Ayla has a great question for Jurnee.
Hi guys. Thank you, first of all, for being here. This has been so cool. But my question, yes, is for Jurnee. I wanted to say, I just finished Lovecraft about a week ago, and it took me a few weeks even to get to the finale, because it was just like the first time that I've seen a predominantly Black cast doing magic, sci-fi. Like, I love that stuff so much. I love astrology and magic and all of that. And you grow up and you see things like Sabrina, all white cast, Harry Potter. I think there's like 6 minutes of Black people speaking throughout 7 movies. And for this to come out and it be portrayed so beautifully, it was just like so moving and touching for me that it was like such a good thing to tune into every week and see. So I was wondering if you felt as like excited, like when that moment happened, when you realized you were going to be able to bring this to people, like to Black girls like me, to be like, wow, like that's happening now, you know? It was just like, I'm just curious to your thoughts on it.
Oh, absolutely. You know, when I first read the pilot, for one, you know, having come from working in Misha Greenland with Underground, and then when I read what she wrote, you know, she just kind of casually passed the pilot to me. I think it took her like 3 weeks to write it. It was something crazy quick. And I was just so blown away by the level of disruption that it was causing, you know, in my spirit of like, wait, I haven't seen Black folks do this, not in this space, not in this genre, or what, you know, and it was just it's just such a blessing to be able to use your imagination in such an expansive way, right? And I think that's what great art does. It contributes to expanding all of our imagination, not just those who are a part of it. You know, when you talk about seeing Black folks do things that, yeah, I mean, we haven't been able to play in this space, unfortunately, to the level that Lovecraft allows us to play. And it's just been humble. It's been like a real humble experience for us, because I think it's a real sacred project. I think it's incredibly generous and bold and audacious, and all of us who have been able to be a part of it are aware of that, you know. And it's yeah, we knew the text was sacred, you know. We knew it would cost us a lot. We knew we would be required to sacrifice our mind, our body, our spirit, but you know, you got to bring something to the altar, right? Like, and for a project like this, it's so mighty. And yeah, so I think we all were aware of how mighty it was. But thank you. I'm so glad that it has impacted you in that way.
Thank you. And also, Chris, thank you. Me and my mom love the Mindy Project. We like watch it constantly. So
Nice to meet you.
you as well. Thanks, guys.
Ayla's a great student. She's in first year now. She's in a great class, and she's so passionate. Talking about you, Ayla. What else you got, Justin? Do we have one more?
Sure, one more. Cherie, great. If you're still there and you'd like to ask.
Oh, yes. Hi. Sorry, I had the tape over my screen. Anyway, hi. I love you both. Thank you both so much for doing this.
What about me?
Hi, Terry. It's been forever.
You don't write? You don't call?
I know, I've been busy.
That's good.
I've been busy. Good things. But I miss your face, and we'll connect soon. So thank you both so much. It's been such a pleasure to just have your guidance. This is a question for you both. I just wanted to know, because I'm kind of I got my first under 5, so that's a huge thing for me. And I wanted to know, what are some of the ways that you prepare for the role? And do you typically feel grounded in your character by the first table read? So that's for you both.
Chris, you go. No, you go.
Okay, so you got your first under 5, you said?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's huge.
That must have felt good.
Yes. That's huge.
Does that mean it's a couple, is a couple days, one day?
Yeah, it's a one-day shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the project?
For the Equalizer.
Now, I would say those are sometimes, and not to scare you, because you're gonna have a blast and have a lot of fun. Sorry, I got a puppy under me that's doing weird stuff. I would say that this is Rocky, by the way, right here.
Hi, Rocky.
I would say to you that try to prepare it. So is it one scene?
Yes.
Yeah, I would try to prepare it that there's that's one scene in an entire life of that woman you're playing. So you don't try to, because I've made this mistake many times where I had this one scene and I wanted to show that he was angry and tormented and he was emotional in this. And when he says this line, it has to be this. And that if you can build a whole backstory for this person, that that this one scene is just a part, you know, one moment. Does that make any sense? And so that you won't put so much on it, you know. Now you asked, was I to the table read?
Yeah. Do you typically feel grounded in the character by your first table read? Like, how prepared are you? Are you off book? Are you ready to go? Are you still sort of figuring out who your character is and developing based off of the other actors that are in the room and how they're responding?
Yeah, I'm usually using the table read as another rehearsal. You know, you're going to have a tendency to want to. That's the problem with table reads. Are so strange, you know, because you know I'm sure with this show there's the producer and the director and a bunch of people around, and it's the cast is like, hey, what's going on? I mean, I guess it's Zoom, so it's different, right? But still, I hate table reads. I hate them.
Oh my gosh, Chris, me too.
I hate them, right? Yeah.
I hate what they've become.
My
More
dog's
so.
eating my socks. Hold on 1 second. Give me a Jurnee, take it from here, but I have something to say.
Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny. I literally just said this to a friend of mine. I was like, oh, I hate table reads, man. I love them for one reason. I love because it's the first time you're hearing everybody and everything like that. So that is great. And yes, like it's just an extension of rehearsal. What I dislike sometimes about it is sometimes it depends on the project, right? It depends on the director, it depends on, you know, whether it's a TV or film, like is the network involved or is it small and more intimate, you know? So all those things, you just gotta like, I do not lock into any sort of choices, or for me it's like free flow. It's like, all right, we're here to play, take all the pressure off, don't perform, don't do any of that stuff. It's not for them. It's literally for you. Be very selfish in that moment. Like you're there to be informed about the world and hear things and just play. Like that's how I look at it. Like I wouldn't be off book unless it's like, oh, we're doing a table read and we're going to shoot that day or we're going to shoot the next day. Then yeah, I probably know my stuff by then. But I just would encourage you to take the pressure off of it with the table read, right? You know, and just in general with a project like this, you know, Chris is absolutely right. Build a whole world that we may never see, but we'll see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and I just would encourage you, don't over rehearse it. You know, like you want to find the real balance of like, I'm in it. I know her. I know all her shit. I know it. Where's she coming from? You know, I know all of it. But I don't know. It's tricky. And Terry, you speak to this sometimes of like, you know, it's tricky when we memorize things and you tend to lock into choices, right? And with things like this, when you're just jumping into a scene, right? And everyone, they are all the other cast, they know each other, they know all the stuff, and it's, you know, be very generous with yourself, right? Of like, I'm gonna try a few different ways. I'm gonna, you know, just play.
Yeah, that's great advice.
I want to say though that I want to ask you a question, Cherie. Is the scene you're doing a scene you put on tape for them?
Yes.
Okay, so it's a little different, some of the advice Chris and Jurnee are giving you when you're a recurring character or one of the leads in a show. They are expecting you to do rather what you did. What you did is what they want. That doesn't mean there's no room for improvisation or acting, but like that's why they cast you, is because they like what you did. There are also, and I don't mean this to scare you, but they are firing people at table reads these days because the network gets fucking weird, right? Now you can't worry about that. You have to stay loose and stay playful. But they're doing weird shit now because they're like, you know, they've got people on computers going, you know, and it's weird. And don't be disturbed by it. I would say be off book, so you don't look unprepared, but stay very loose and keep your attention on everybody around you. be curious, have a fuck it attitude inside you. It can be different, here and there, but like, don't show off your wild acting stuff. Just like be a team player, be curious, know that you got the part because it's going to be the first of hundreds of parts you're going to play, and you should be there. It's about time, and people are going to watch you, and they're going to want to work with you again. So you got to like deal with your nerves, and just go in to have fun, and be proud, I would say.
Also, if you auditioned for it, you earned it. You won the role. You belong there, so you can walk into the room with that confidence of you deserve to be there just like every regular cast member. I don't know if she's frozen, but you deserve to be there just like the regular cast members and everyone else there, because you earned it.
Yeah. And I'd also be familiar with the show. Watch a bunch of episodes so you know how things go.
Yeah, that's all. Well, you had a second part of your question. Did we answer the second part? One was the table read, but what was the other one?
Yeah. I think that was it. What are some of the ways that you prepare for your?
Have good internet.
Yeah.
Some of the ways we prepare.
Yeah, some of the ways that you prepare for your roles going into, I guess, the steps that you.
I think it's we talked a little bit about it, about like, it's always like if I was preparing for this one, I do that. It's always so different is the real answer. But if I was doing this, I think both Jurnee and Terry gave you incredible advice. I would, away from the table read, I would improvise it and play with it and really keep it loose. And I would prepare. It's gonna feel like a lot of work for the one scene, but I would try doing this. I really would prepare a whole backstory for the person, and like she came from this thing, and after this scene, she's going to this thing. So the scene doesn't become this like, here it is, you know what I mean? Because I find the less I have to do, the harder it is, and so if I have a lot of language and it's a big scene, I almost feel like I calm down in it. But sometimes the littler moments, 4 lines, 5 lines, 6, one scene, whatever it is, sometimes, I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I've seen it being I've seen it so many times, I'm sure Jurnee has too, when you're a regular on the show and you see people come in for the 1 day or the 2 days, there's just it's my time. Now I have to do my thing. And as much as you can alleviate any of that pressure or stress for yourself and say, like they both said, fuck it. I earned it. I'm supposed to be here. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have fun today. I'm going to enjoy every take and every note. I'm going to have a fucking blast.
That's great. And congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congrats. Have fun.
That's great. So I think we've gone a little bit over, but thank you so much, you guys. I am so grateful and moved, and I'm going to ask the audience to turn on their cameras in just a second, just to wave goodbye and thank you. But I'm wondering what each of you would. I mean, you've given a lot of advice. Any parting words that you'd want to say to anybody here, these beautiful young actors, to keep them hopeful and creative and relevant as we go forward in time, in difficult times, and what a wonderful opportunity we have to keep telling stories.
Yeah, I just I'm going to repeat myself, Terry, and say, just use this time to work. Just use it to work. The world will go back to some kind of normal, whatever that looks like and is, and Hollywood and the theater will reopen. There will be tons of work to do. In fact, it will be astronomical how many auditions you're all going to have and how much work there's going to be out there. I can't say when, but it's going to happen. And so use this time to prepare yourself. Use this time. It's a boxer getting ready for a fight. You don't want to get into the ring and be tired. You're going to get up against the ropes. You want to know how to get out, bob and weave. I think it was said many times today. Jurnee said it. You can't get on set and be like, oh shit, I didn't do that work. Do it now. This time fucking sucks. It's weird. It's heartbreaking. But there are positivity. There is positivity in it. There's ways to fight this as an artist. And I would just say, you know, study with Terry. Go get to work. Fuck Zoom. It sucks. It sucks to do a scene like this. Fuck it. Who cares? Get over it and do it. Just do it.
Oh yeah, Chris. Oh yeah. Yeah, there's not much more to say than that. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. You know, I one of the mantras I often repeat in my head, a wise man, Ricky Minor, who's a musician, composer, brilliant, band leader extraordinaire, always says, he always tells his other performers, you know, stay out of your head and get into your heart. And I think about that all the time. You know, don't overthink it. Do the work, and then just surrender, and leave room for the magic to come in.
That's great. Well, you guys, the sum of the parts was greater than the whole. You are such complementary and wonderful souls, and I love you both very much. And I know you have given our community today a great gift, a real great gift. So I'm going to thank you. I'm going to ask everybody to turn their cameras on so that we can wave and you can see who's here. There's a baby.
Love you, Jurnee.
Yeah.
Love you. Thank you.
Yeah, love all of you. Look at all these beautiful souls. Yeah. Okay, so let's turn our mics on and give them a big round of applause. That would be great.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe. Love you both. Talk to you soon.
Love you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.